Hey guys, so I wanted to talk to you about something that happened to me when I was just recently in the hospital a few months ago. And I was actually supposed to end up getting a PICC line while I was at the hospital because they had been having so many issues like getting an IV. So they had tried in this arm, they had tried in this arm. Um, they had looked in my hands. They had even looked at putting an IV like up here in this area because I've had IVs there before. It's not that I don't have good veins, it's just that my veins are really small for some reason. I've also heard that other people who have MS sometimes have this same issue where they have problems getting blood drawn or getting IVs placed and things like that, especially when they're doing like infusions. Um, So I don't know if it's an MS thing or if it's just me because I'm overweight. I have no clue. But anyways, they had stuck me like 20 times at least trying to get an IV placed. And even with trying to get blood drawn, it was hard for them to draw blood because they had to stick me 2 or 3 times just to get blood from me. So I was just so irritated and I had had enough. Like, it felt like absolute torture when I was going through this because I felt like no matter what happened, they were not going to be able to get the IV placed. They were not going to be able to get blood. And so my nurse actually had reached out to see if they could get a PICC line put in, and she asked the doctor, and she told them like that my nurse had been in the room like a few different times. She had tried to place the IV, she couldn't get it. She had another nurse try to get it. The people in the ER couldn't get the IV placed, and it was just a whole bunch of mess. So I was just done. Like, I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was being tortured to death. And after the nurse asked the doctor if I could get a PICC line, the doctor actually approved it because the doctor had come into the room to actually like witness what was going on, and she saw exactly how it was when they were trying to draw blood and trying to place the IV, and she saw everything that I was going through. So she actually, it was the hospitalist. It wasn't like my doctor who had come to consult with the people in the hospital, but it was the hospitalist doctor that was overseeing my case, and she approved them putting the PICC line in. So on the day when she approved it, it was already too late. Like, the PICC team had already gone home, I guess, because they have the IV team and then they have the PICC team. They work in the same office, but they're different. Like, the IV team, there's people there from the IV team at all times, but there's not people there from the PICC team at all times, if that makes sense. So from my understanding, the PICC team is only there like during normal business hours. They're not there like all night long. There are nurses and other faculty members who are able to insert PICC lines at this specific hospital on an emergency basis. But with my issue, it wasn't necessarily an emergency. It was more like they knew that I needed it, but they were trying to just deal with the IV that I had in this arm, because I did have an IV that the ambulance team had started, but I had to keep my arm like this in order for it to continue to run. Like, I couldn't bend my arm, I couldn't move it to a different position, nothing at all. I literally had to sit like this. They had a pillow under my arm to keep it straight. Like, it was ridiculous, and I needed to move my arm because if I even moved it just like a little bit, it would start beeping and say that it was occluded. So the next day in the morning, I think it was like somewhere around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, this lady comes from the IV team, and I had asked her if she was going to start the PICC. Now, one of the reasons why we wanted the PICC and not just someone from the IV team to come place an IV is because I knew that I was going to have to be getting blood drawn every day to get, blood counts and all of that stuff. And with a PICC line, they can draw blood from the PICC line and they can also infuse with the PICC line. So I can get the IV medicines that I was on, but they could also draw my blood at the same time, so they wouldn't have to stick me multiple times. So this lady comes from the IV team, and she says that she just wants to place the IV. And I said, well, I would really prefer to just get the PICC line because, you know, I told her everything that had happened. And she's just like, well, I'm going to check and see if I can find a place for an IV. And that's what she ended up doing. She ended up getting the IV, but I was so irritated because, you know, the doctor had approved me for the PICC line. I had already consented to getting the PICC line. And then she decides to tell me that I don't need a PICC line, I'm just going to get an IV, and she placed an IV, and after that, I had to get blood drawn again, and they still had fucking problems drawing my blood. And excuse my language, but it was really irritating. And if you have MS or another chronic illness, please let me know if you've had this issue before where people don't listen to you, like, don't listen to what you are requesting, and don't know or don't want to try to understand what it is that you're asking them to do. And I don't know, it was irritating because I wish that people would listen. Like, when you go into a healthcare facility or a doctor's office, or you're admitted to the hospital and they find out that you have a chronic illness, it's like all your credibility just goes out the door and they don't believe anything you say. And it's like they think that you're being overly dramatic, and that's not how it is. I mean, yes, there are people that do that, but, you know, I don't know. It's not everybody. But anyways, I just wanted to share my story. Again, if you have a chronic illness or MS, specifically, let me know if this has ever happened to you. If you have bad veins or small veins or whatever, let me know. I'm just curious to see if I'm the only person with this same issue, and I know I'm not the only person with the same issue of people not listening to you when they find out you have a chronic illness. But anyways, I wanted to share my story. Let me know if there's anything else you would like me to talk about on the channel, and I will get it filmed for you. And with that being said, that's all I have for this video. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will talk to you guys again soon.